We'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Hello, Maleficent. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. It's a public holiday today.
It is, and it's always a sort of a day of remembrance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more than a public holiday.
Yeah.
It's signifying and representing and symbolising something that our generation hasn't had to deal with, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, those in Australia,
Yeah,
for sure.
to go to war.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still people on active duty.
Absolutely.
Not many Anzacs left, though, is there?
No.
So I won't say
Sadly.
happy Anzac Day, but I'll say, respectful Anzac Day. So it's a bit of a weird one for us then too, Mel, being a public holiday. We're going to do something a little different today, a little bit of a mashup, a little bit of a clip show of best bits of Talking Couch Potatoes.
Exactly. We're having a bit of a day off too.
A slight day off.
Slight day off.
Yeah.
Half a day off.
Sit back and enjoy. It's going to be something different if you, especially for those who haven't listened to. Well, there's 40 episodes, Mel.
Yes,
We made it to 40.
we did.
That's brilliant. And as you said, I think it was last episode, 40 is where evolution and change really happens.
Yep. A calmness begins to come over you in your
Right.
40s.
Yeah.
And then when you get to 50, let me tell you, the rage sets in.
The pent-up frustrations finally
Exactly.
emerge.
Yeah, wild women.
The wild women emerge. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you are on Anzac Day, our beautiful producer's Gem's going to just find the best bits of 40 episodes worth of Talking Couch Potatoes, which really is cool because we're going to have an album of greatest hits, basically.
That's exactly right.
That's what you're in for today.
Couch potatoes,
Greatest
greatest hits.
Yeah.
Just
yes,
on
Mel?
that, did
Yes.
you know that Free the Hounds are 10 this year?
Free the Hounds are 10.
In August. We're
Wow.
10 years old.
And look how far you've come in just 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's work to be done and you won't be satisfied, Mel, until, as George Bush said, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Hopefully this outdated, unsustainable, inhumane sport is finally wiped from the face of modern civilization.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I reckon. There's something in the air.
I hope so.
I feel it in my waters, Mel. I do. I feel it right in my waters. Anyway, what's going on, Mel?
I have some statistics, sadly, which we
stats.
know. Yeah, which is...
It's the necessary evil
Yep.
of the podcast, isn't it?
It is. So in the first quarter of 2025, so that's January to March, one dog was killed on track. 2 dogs died on track. They're both under investigation and having autopsies. 6 dogs have died off track, but those injuries occurred on track. 153 dogs were also injured on track, from 5 days stand downs to some 42 day stand downs. And then 164 dogs were injured off track. So we're unsure of whether or not any of those have survived. We won't know until these stats come out from racing and wagering. And that is an increase from first quarter of last year and then again from the previous year.
So it's trending, in spite of everything they're saying about track improvements and this and that and safety
Exactly.
improvements.
Yeah.
You would think that might stabilise things and hopefully make things better.
Well,
Actually, it's getting worse
You
and
would
worse.
think after almost $10 million spent on 2 tracks that they would be in decline,
Right.
but it's not. It hasn't made a difference,
Well,
clearly.
it's getting worse.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's, when we say worse, it's only 1 or 2, but $9 million should not equate to things getting worse.
Yeah, you know.
All for gambling,
Yeah.
again, for an organisation that's making a loss. So also from the financial perspective, trainer subsidies in that quarter were $606,000. Stake money won by participants and owners was $4,842,000. Breeding bonuses paid out was $266,000. And the money or the amount that went to welfare from that was $48,800.
Catches my breath every time you talk about $5 million here, $400,000 here.
Yeah.
Oh, and a couple of grand to look after them as well. Oh, we chucked maybe a tiny percentage point.
Yeah, I think it's 1%.
It's
It's not enough.
If people say put your money where your mouth is in terms of caring about something,
Absolutely. That welfare payment would exceed all the others.
so can they stop this bollocks again?
I know.
I'm hepped up, Mel. I've told you every
Sorry.
time we do these stats shit. Can we please stop this bollocks argument that we look after and love our greyhounds?
Yeah.
Then put your money where your mouth is.
Yep.
Don't tell me you're going to throw 1% of your resources
Yeah.
and then say, yeah, no, we really care.
Yeah. We, as people that work and pay our taxes, we have to give more than 1% of our wages to the state to care for our community. Imagine if the taxman said, okay, just give me 1%.
What would it achieve?
Exactly.
And you know what happens, Mel, we've spoken about it, is what happens is these beautiful, amazing community groups like Free the Hounds, Gawa, Greyhounds, Adoptions WA, all these other beautiful rescue groups, the Animal Refuge, Dog Refuge place, they're the ones who step in.
Exactly.
Because we know 1% isn't 1/100th of enough to get shit done.
Exactly.
So it's the community that not only puts their tax money to prop up this sport, then when it creates a big mess, we also have to step in.
I know, and that's something that they don't ever look at. And one of the trainers actually commented on our stats post saying, I just wonder how these figures stack up against injuries to suburban dogs, like at the beach or at the local park.
I love that one.
Or even in their own backyard. And how many of these injuries go untreated by a vet? One of the team responded with, good question, and it's probably worse. However, regular pets don't get bred purely for racing and gambling profits in our state, nor are they funded by taxpayer dollars. As you would be aware, 2 trainers just in the past 12 months have been suspended for not having their dogs seen by vets or in the appropriate time. Dogs being harmed at parks and beaches is also not advertised by our government as family friendly and a great night out. Yourself and your colleagues received over $5 million from the state in the last quarter, yet you continue to pass dogs into the community with no vet records or disclosure of previous injuries. Most members of the public do not send their dogs off to be rehomed once injured. Also, one thing being bad does not excuse the other.
Yeah, it's a false equivalency.
But they came back and they said, that's not entirely true because greyhound trainers pay tax.
Well, that's just a falsehood, isn't it?
We actually got under freedom of information. Out of the over 1,000 participants, there is only 40 unique ABNs that have been supplied to racing and wagering.
Right.
So that means 40 of them declare this as an income.
Right. So this industry that we're spending a shitload on and millions of dollars in track upgrades and track blah, 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 millions of dollars, I think, in just propping them up in general, right?
Yep.
So there's 40 of them giving a little bit back.
Yes. Yeah, because you either say that you're a hobbyist or you have an ABN.
Yeah. So there's 40. Everyone, for our listeners, this industry that seems to advocate as being a key part of our cultural identity is basically supporting 40 people in all of WA. Mel, the other part of that, which is so beautifully put, and I love the way that you and Free the Hounds are able to stick to the facts, stick to the logic, when I know you get attacked so often with spurious arguments like that. The only other thing I'd say is you take the dog to the beach or the park or wherever it is, you're not told, and you don't know, because it's not true, that if you keep doing that time and again, more than 1 in 3 will be injured or killed. Yep. We know that statistically.
Yeah.
So to draw the equivalency of taking your dog to the beach for a swim, park for a run around, and the tragic, unavoidable stuff that happens compared to the tragic, entirely avoidable shit that happens on a track.
Exactly.
So you've got to do better than that, pro racers, if you're going to have a little argument with us. And again, come and say g'day on the podcast.
Yeah,
let's have a real. We'll get our facts and shit together.
Yep.
You get your position together, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, but they do go on, and it says that they get money from tote turnovers, like the other 2 codes do. Okay, fair enough. However, the tote turnover is also owned in Western Australia by the government. Right. So that's like saying that all the taxes that come in from a hospital should go back into health.
Yeah.
And then but without greyhound racing, the breed wouldn't exist.
Oh, I've heard that one too.
Because no one else would breed them, and the breed would just become extinct. Do they believe that they are the greyhound saviours?
Yeah. And also, Mel, I don't want to mock anyone or anything, but sometimes an opinion is absurdly off objective reality. Do they think that greyhounds only started existing when we started racing them?
100%.
They've been around for I don't know, thousands of years.
Yeah.
And this mob think that, hang on, if we don't keep putting them on a track and chucking a bet on them, they're gone.
I know. And I'm not trying to belittle this person. I would just really, and Matt has said it very often, let's have a discussion. And this is partly why Free the Hounds have pushed so hard, or are pushing so hard, for an inquiry within Parliament, because let's put all the cards on the table.
Yeah.
Let's get an understanding, because if this is really true, the Auditor General's Office just came out with their report on the 11th of April regarding the WA Greyhound Racing Association.
I saw that. I saw that on the Free the Hounds post. It's really worth a look. That was quite stunning to me.
And the fact that there is a high possibility within their processes, the ability for fraud to occur.
It lends itself more toward fraud than to protection from fraud.
Exactly. And the Auditor General said themselves that it was being run like a family business. If that is how it is being run at that level, you know, how well are they looking after the dogs if millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars that go into it are not being cared for or looked after properly?
It says something. It paints a picture of...
you cannot have integrity, welfare and gaming all sitting under the one roof of racing and wagering.
Yeah.
So have an inquiry.
Yeah.
If it's not being done right, fix it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't accept this because 73% of the bills were being paid by one person on their personal credit card.
Yeah.
If you were doing that in a government business anywhere else, you would be fired.
Oh, I work for the government, Mel. You know that, and we have very strict protocols that look out for this kind of stuff.
But our biggest gaming establishment, or where they get their funding from, isn't under.
There's no integrity.
Scrutiny.
There's no oversight. There's no accountability.
Nothing.
Yeah, there's lip service to all that stuff. But
So let's just have a really good discussion about it.
Let's have an inquiry. We've pushed for one. We've got the signatories for one. If you've got nothing to hide, pro racers,
100%.
jump in.
You know what you're fighting with. It's the truth.
Yeah. You care about the dogs. I care about the racing and the gambling.
Exactly.
Let's see who wins.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mel. And also a big thank you to everyone last night that turned up.
Yes, our protest outside Cannington at the Sandgroper.
Yeah.
A dog called Sandgroper died on track. And then the following year, they brought out this slot race with the biggest prize in our state.
Yeah.
Came out with the name Sandgroper because they wanted it to be a West Aussie thing.
Yeah. I kind of think that one of the races that symbolises their industry is based on a dead dog.
I know.
There's some
irony in that.
Symbolic irony there. Yeah.
is profound, really.
Mel, we're going to do our mashup soon.
Yep.
I can't wait to listen to it myself, see what Jem comes up with. Best of, greatest hits.
Great.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I know that WA election, the dust is still settling because we've got a new voting system, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
Second preferences and all that stuff. So it's taken a bit longer.
The upper house will resume and be sworn in, I believe it's the 22nd of May.
Yeah. I know Greens had their best result yet.
Yep.
Free the Hounds is non-political, non-partisan. I think a few listeners might know where I sit on the spectrum, though, as in my personal viewpoint as a host. So I'm pretty happy that the guys on the left did really well because the guys on the left seem to give more of a shit about social justice and beautiful creatures. Yep. The guys on the right we barely hear from, even though we reach out very often.
Yep.
So Labor did okay too, which is good.
Yeah, I think of the major parties, Labor are definitely more inclined to do something about animal welfare than what Liberal or the Nationals.
Seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe Basil will bring something new in.
Oh, Basil.
Who knows? Let's see.
Thanks, Mel. Enjoy the rest of the Anzac Day.
Yeah.
And what do? You just have a quiet one?
Yeah, my brother and my nephew are both
serving. Yeah. My dad was 27 years in the Air Force.
Wow.
My grandfather was actually a rat of Tobruk, I'm told, which has something to do with Gallipoli.
Yeah, I think we're just so very lucky to be born where we are.
Yeah. Only one thing we've got to fix about this current
Greyhound
world.
racing.
Yeah.
Wipe it out.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the show. I don't know what the hell it is, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
Hang on.
We'll see you next time. See you guys.
See ya.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to episode 2. We're up to our second podcast. What do you know? Are they called episodes in podcasts? I don't know. But it's episode 2 of Talking Couch Potatoes. This is part of Free the Hounds' Voice for the Voiceless. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the trigger warning for greyhounds. Is that Georgia singing, Hannah?
Yes, it's Georgia.
And how do you know Georgia?
Because she's my dog.
Welcome, Hannah. And welcome to Talking Couch Potatoes. This is episode number 5, I believe. All right. Well, welcome back to episode 8. It's the Christmas episode of Talking Couch Potatoes. I get very excited at Christmas.
Ugh, I'm a Scrooge. I'm a Grinch.
Really?
You just ask my kids. Yep.
Here we are again. We're back. It's episode 20 of Talking Couch Potatoes. Back with Mel in the studio. Hi, Mel. How are you?
Hi, Matt. I'm really good. How are you?
And I know Mel spent most of the Christmas break rescuing some drowning greyhounds off the coast of Mallorca. I think she saved about 112 greyhounds. One by one swam out swam them back in. So that's what Mel does when she's having a break. Well done, Mel.
Thanks.
It's nice to have you back. I went on a little holiday. I hear you did a crash course in rhinoplasty and you were helping repair greyhound noses, which it's a big thing to do, isn't it, on your break?
Because, the bigger the snoot, the more the boops.
That's right. That's a saying, well-known saying. So well done, Mel, for just tirelessly helping the greyhounds yet again. You know what else is interesting, Mel? Countries. I've got another country update.
Is it Greenland?
We want Greenland, don't we?
We do.
We're obsessively and somewhat oddly interested in Greenland on this podcast. I heard, though, you did take Mel went to Greenland for the break to try and encourage them to listen to the podcast. You kept it on the low down, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
No one knew. I didn't even know until we got in the studio today.
Yep.
That she'd met the Australian Embassy in Greenland, making a big effort to make that happen.
Yes.
Thanks, Mel.
So let's hope next episode, or next time you look,
Greenland will be on board. Because I've got a prophecy, don't you? I believe that when Greenland becomes one of our countries, greyhound racing ends.
That's right.
They'll be the saviour, in a sense.
Yeah. Holy Grail.
Yeah. Well, I've got some news I can't keep to myself, Mel. It's just, I'm bursting. Absolutely bursting
all over
at
the studio. Go on.
Well, Greenland's been in the news lately, right?
Yeah.
They've missed the lead story, Mel. All the news organisations have completely buried the lead, which is, and I want a drum roll for this, Jim, if you're editing it. The latest listener to Talking Couch Potatoes, finally, Greenland are on board, Mel.
Greenland
are on board. We have listeners in Greenland. Welcome aboard, Greenland. The prophecy that I foretold is coming to pass. Greenland means the end of greyhound racing. What can the public do, people like me who've realised they want to make a change? What's the best thing they can do?
Yeah. So as we just spoke about, it's politicians that can fix this problem. And I remind myself every single day is that politicians work for you. Politicians aren't your boss, you're their boss.
Oh, that's so refreshing to hear.
And I think that they are obligated to you as a constituent to give you their time to listen to your concerns. And I always encourage people, if you're reaching out to your member of parliament or local politician, if they say they're not going to meet with you or if they say they don't want to discuss it, you can say that you don't accept that as an answer. And some of the best campaigns that we've worked on over the years before I was a member of parliament and I was just part of the animal protection community is we just would not take no for an answer when it came to politicians. We would be rocking up at their offices unannounced. We would be going to parliament. We'd be dropping petitions at their door. And eventually they get to a point where they have to listen to you. But to answer the question, in order to bring about change, we need to convince our lawmakers and we need to insist that they listen to us. I can say as a member of parliament myself, an email has impact and we always write back to every single email. A phone call has even more impact and a request for a meeting is the highest amount of pressure that you can receive. And members of parliament electorate officers are open to the public to walk into at any time and ask to book in an appointment. And that's absolutely your right as a constituent. And it is one of the most powerful tools to make them notice you.
As a practicing vet, when I would see ex-racing greyhounds, which I did quite often, they always had very bad teeth because very cheap and poor quality diets were used in the kennels and lack of exercise, socialisation and the poor conditions of the kenneling. So there is all of that. And then there's also the issue of many more greyhounds are born and then actually go forward into racing, and ones that are considered at an early age not to be likely to run fast enough to generate a profit will mysteriously disappear. So there's very little transparency about where all those greyhounds go, but it is assumed that most of them are euthanized, unfortunately. In fact, euthanasia is the wrong term. By definition, euthanasia means killing that's not only humanely conducted, but also in the best interests of the animal, which is true if they're severely injured and no prognosis for recovery, for example. But for a young animal that has the prospect of a lifetime in front of it that it could enjoy, it's not euthanasia. It's killing animals possibly humanely, but it's not something that's ethical. So, yeah, there's a massive problem with wastage of greyhounds that are not considered to be fast enough to make a profit. And there's the cost minimisation and resulting in very poor conditions in kennels, diets, training regimes, lack of socialisation, preventative healthcare, and so on. And that, of course, would all remain even if a miracle occurred and the tracks were reformed with the long list of recommendations that you read out previously involving straightening the tracks and so on.
So it's actually been a really, really busy 48 hours for us at Free the Hounds. Yesterday, a story broke through the ABC regarding greyhound exports to China. We found at least 8 or 9 greyhounds over the past 2 years that had gone to various destinations, but all ended up in China one way or another. There was some pretty distressing footage. It just, I guess, reminded us again of why we need to protect these dogs and make sure that they don't leave the country, because it doesn't matter if they're sent overseas. Under the rules, they're just not staying where we imagine that they are.
It's not a safe system.
Exactly. It's a broken system, yeah.
So it's just this kind of mixed emotions. So they don't get to socialise and they don't know anything. They'll see someone and they'll be like, oh, hey, like, who's that? They're sussing it. Probably might be a bit tense. Someone goes to reach out and they go, whoa, hang on, you've just stepped into my bubble, not cool.
Yep.
And then they'll growl. Also, it is good that he's giving a growl, because that is a warning, which we can respect. If dogs don't growl and they instantly go to bite, that's kind of when you're actually a bit too far and when things are a bit more serious.
Yep.
So growls are good.
Growls are good.
Yeah, I always tell people growls are great, like awesome. Then we can learn what they're saying. They're telling us something.
I like that.
Yeah. So basically what I like to do with this sort of thing is build trust between the owner and the dog. Because when we're out and about, we want the dog to look at us for security. If someone's coming near us, we want the dog to go, oh, my owner's cool, so
I'm good.
we're good.
Yeah.
And then also just simply respecting the dog. They don't need to be touched, especially by strangers.
And then I watched the footage back. I'm like, this is actually really captivating.
Yeah, right.
Just the emotion in her eyes is amazing. And then, of course, when I made the little grey film, I couldn't help but put her in there.
Of course.
Oh, she has to be in it.
Yeah.
She's your inspiration.
Well, that's right. It was all inspired by her. Yeah. It was a real lightning bolt moment for me. Like, my films have always got some element of a social issue or something in them. I can't help it. But I was making these other little documentaries and I was writing this huge big narrative film. We kind of got stuck in writer's block and I was like, you know what? I've got a greyhound right here. I really don't know a lot about the industry or where she came from. So why don't I find out more about that? And yeah, so it kind of happened overnight.
There's just so much grassroots activism happening. To be at the Greyhound workshop was truly like living through history, and to see how many people are working on this and see them come together for the first time and have dialogue that was very strategically well thought out, as well, sophisticated. And I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that the grassroots community here is going to end greyhound racing in Australia. The question is, how long is that going to take, and how many dogs are going to suffer and die in the meantime?
But money talks, doesn't it, Sebastian?
For better or for worse, yes, money does talk. I mean, from what I've seen in a lot of the cases, it's not profitable for these venues to run without handouts from the government. So handing out money to what is essentially a gambling industry is a huge waste of taxpayer money. Tasmania, each Tasmanian gives about $58 a year to Tas racing. I don't think if you ask the average Tasmanian if they approve, particularly during a cost of living crisis, would they rather have the $58 in their pocket for groceries and bills, or do they want to pay people to force greyhounds to run around the track? Doesn't really make sense.
So basically what we're seeing is a situation where the government, while giving lip service to a lot of the dangers of gambling for the community, trying to give the impression that they're doing the best work they can to minimise harm to community, are also intimately involved with the promotion, marketing, inducements for more gambling. It seems like a curious situation to me.
It's extremely ironic because you've got the sort of two different branches of government fighting against each other, because on one hand, the federal government's saying we need to crack down on advertising and inducements, and on the other hand, the WA government, if you read the most recent Racing and Wagering WA annual report, you'd see that there was a lot of stuff about new marketing strategies and new ways to retain customers and stuff like that. So they're very much pushing against each other, and I'm not sure if there's been any consultation from the federal government, because it seems very hypocritical when you've got one of the states who's sort of actively promoting the things that the federal government's trying to address.
Okay, what else should we talk about, kids?
I've got a joke.
Oh, yeah, Hannah brought some jokes in. I should mention, though, because they're all dog jokes, they might be very poor jokes.
These jokes will leave you howling.
Howling.
Like Georgia.
What do you got?
Okay. So, what dog is always having a bath?
Tell me, Hannah, what dog is always having a bath?
A shampoodle.
Shampoo. Oh, because it's shampoo and poodle put together. All right, what's your next one?
What do you call a magician dog?
What do you call a magician dog?
A labracadabrador.
Abracadabrador. That was pretty good. That wasn't bad, was it? What do you think? Good jokes?
The jokes were very rough.
Yeah, nice. Do you know how a Japanese dog says hello?
No.
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Well, this was lovely. Today we're going to talk about something that's super important because you put a lot of work into this, Mel. It's the estimate committee hearings. Can you just tell me what was the estimate committee hearing and how was it instigated?
We hope that it came out from some correspondence that we had written to the committee, just trying to make them aware of some of the anomalies that we found within the funding and the expenditure around greyhound racing in our state. Twice now, unfortunately, we've been dismissed, if you like, by one of the other committees with our petitions. So we thought, well, we'll try another committee and see if people will look at it from a financial perspective more so than perhaps an animal welfare view.
So you got locked back from the front door, so you went round the side
Exactly.
door. And it sounds like there was a bit of movement, sort of revelations.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the more that you can speak to it, the more people will be educated on it. Because I really feel that there's people within government that don't understand the way that it all plays out.
That was the sense I got from watching it, actually, that Free the Hounds seem to have more information about what's going on underneath the covers here than some members of parliament. So you've shone a bit of a light on that.
As we've always maintained, let's see if it is actually worth the money that they say it is. And if so, then let's work together to care for the hounds.
The cost associated, particularly with rescue, was actually shocking. And for me, it just made me realise these dogs are being churned out by this industry. You know, they're being completely overbred, they're being used up, and then they're being discarded at the end. And a lot of the onus on their ongoing care, if they're lucky to get out, falls on the community. And I thought, God, how come we're having to raise money just to get these dogs into a home and to give them access to sort of this basic level of care while there's billions of dollars being churned about through the greyhound racing industry just to generate gambling profits. It was really a moment for me, and I thought we've got to do something about this.
Intense grief is like being in a fire, and that's how I felt, that you're consumed by this kind of unrelenting heat and you can't breathe properly because of the smoke. And not only that, you're dealing with the emotions of family members as well. So you're trying to contend with all that. So it was really tough. But and I knew, thankfully, I had an appreciation of how hard it was hitting me. And I knew how much time I needed to process it.
Yeah. You've spoke a little bit about the scepticism for the idea that we can grieve as strongly and as powerfully for an animal companion as much as we can the loss of a human loved one. This week, Mel is taking the interviewing chair. Going to interview Karen from Dogs Refuge Home. I think you'll be awesome. I would love to be there, but Bunny, you know Bunny, my beautiful princess greyhound.
Yes.
Bunny and I are getting our nails done together.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, we're having a daddy-daughter date. I think she's going to go with pink sparkles. I'm doing pink sparkles.
Yeah.
She's not really into pink.
We always have ex-racing greyhounds who need to be fostered and adopted, but we have the added complications of the housing crisis and the financial crisis, I suppose, that a lot of people are experiencing in terms of cost of living. So not only have we got those ex-racing greyhounds coming out of the industry, but we have a lot of private surrenders coming to us as well.
Something else interesting that I found out, the tax income that our government earns from gambling is only 6% of the total tax that our state takes in.
Right.
6% is
From all gambling?
all gambling thing.
Yeah, right. So the percentage that would be greyhound gambling from that would be another
even
fraction
smaller.
again? Because you've got the casino, you've got the...
You've got lotteries, you've got thoroughbred, harness, all the rest.
So when we talk about trying to bring an end to this industry, and when people talk about you're decimating, communities and people who make a living...
It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
It is.
I guess the big update, the big news that we want to get pushing out to WA is the next Free the Hounds petition to Parliament, which is up and running, and we're going to do a dive into that today. Mel, get onto Free the Hounds website. You can go onto the government website. It's the petition in relation to banning greyhound racing in WA. We're going to aim for 20,000 minimum, maybe 50,000. There's 100,000.
500,000.
500,000. Let's do it.
We talked earlier about why aren't we doing more to improve the greyhound industry? We are.
Yeah.
And, we're waiting for another meeting with the minister. We will never be holding placards. That's just not what our SPCA does. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say that we're not doing anything. But we don't use our inspectorate for advocacy goals. Our inspectorate is a law enforcement agency. And it's a model prosecutor. It has its own prosecutions policy based on the DPP prosecutions policy. It's a standalone operation that enforces the Animal Welfare Act. But that doesn't mean we're not doing things, as I say, because we have our advocacy work that we do. We probably don't do it as publicly as a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we're against greyhound racing entirely. I think anyone who loves dogs would be against greyhound racing and everything that comes with. We know that the rescue crisis in WA is huge. We advocate for staffies and bullies, but we also advocate for all kinds of dogs. So if we had the means, then we would obviously all work together to help greyhounds, staffies, bullies, any kind of dog. It's like a domino effect throughout WA. If we didn't have greyhound racing, you would be able to help with other rescues and things like that. I've learned so much more even from coming here about greyhound racing that I didn't know. I think it's atrocious. It's barbaric. And I think if the general public actually knew as much as you guys do, and I hope that this podcast gets that out, they would hate it too and they would understand that it needs to end.
There was one other thing.
Hit me.
The Estimates Committee, their report finally was tabled as well, and we were so, gobsmacked to find that they actually recommend a full inquiry into greyhound racing. There's 3 political parties within that committee.
Yep.
The Greens, Liberal and Labor have all said, by looking at the short amount of information that they were given in the hearings, that yes, there needs to be a closer look.
What they're saying then is that there's smoke here.
Exactly.
There could be fire.
Yes.
In terms of what's happening with Free the Hounds, I know that we've closed the electronic petition.
That's right, yep. Not quite where we'd like, but, just over 12,000 signatures.
Right.
Yeah, shortly after the book was published, we had a couple of teachers just reach out and ask if I'd be interested in taking Lily to primary schools and do a book reading, get the kids to have an opportunity to have some pats with Lily and talk about what's involved in her life, her early life as a puppy. And the first one was really unexpectedly successful. I didn't know what to expect. I haven't been an author before, haven't taken a dog to a school before, and it was just the highlight of the semester, the term for the kids, which was beautiful. The first reading, we did it to 200 kids.
In your opinion, working with all animals, what does it do to a greyhound's body?
It does expose them to a series of different types of injuries. One of them is, yes, they have to run on a circular track rather than a straight track. Okay, so my joke is really, greyhounds are fantastic at running in a straight line, but outside of that, they're terrible. They're hopeless because they're quite klutzy, as you all know.
Aren't they?
Right?
Yeah.
Number 2, they have to actually start from a stationary start and generate up to speeds up to 50 to 60 kilometres an hour, which is just about as fast as you're driving your car. They also, much as it's a sandy track, it's also very unstable as well. So the way I look at it, it's not like we're running on turf or anything like that. So deep sand, uneven. Yeah. So all those factors triggered together do make them a lot more susceptible to certain types of injury, and often worse so if they have a collision with another dog or they have a fall themselves.
Yes, for listeners who might not be familiar, the Bad Apple Report, deliberately named that, as a bit of a tongue-in-cheek dig at the
The politicians who always say, "Oh, it's only a few bad apples." No, it's a whole bloody crate. But it's a 200-page document. It details 19 drone investigations into trainer properties in the state, which is a significant percentage of the trainers in Tasmania. It's also got the investigations into a breeder trainer who was giving away undue sex dogs on Gumtree. It's got the Zipic Princess investigation, in which case an actively dying dog was given away on Gumtree. It's got details of the Ross Work and Kenneth Buxton case, where a Tasmanian trainer was sending greyhounds to a guy who's been banned for life for cruelty to greyhounds, including multiple dogs dying as a result of his neglect and treatment of them. And what I saw compiling all of that information was essentially that when the industry says, "Oh, we're tightening up something here," or "it's just one person over there," invariably there's a connection between that person and another person, between that dog and another dog. It's never just one person working in isolation.
Well, the petition is still kicking along. We're at, I think, closer to 22,000 signatures now. What you are doing as a state is funding and supporting gambling.
Right.
And that is something which I am adamantly opposed to. Right. I mean, we saw fit to limit the number of poker machines and the licensing for casinos in Western Australia. And yet we have a very healthy racing industry at the racehorse end and the standard bred end. And the greyhound industry is on the decline. It's perfect. It's a perfect time to say, you guys who are breeding and training them still, let's help you transition out and away from this inhumane sport into the future. And that is absolutely my opinion.
What we've done really well together in the Parliament over the last 4 years is collaborate and with you and ask lots of questions. And I think I got my staff to count up. We asked 129 questions.
Wow, just on greyhound racing.
Yeah, over the last Parliament.
Wow.
But thanks to you, and I think that's one of the key roles that we can play is actually working together. And what that's done is shine a light on an industry that's broken. And I must say it's been one of the rare occasions where we've seen Labor, Liberal and Green work together. And the committee process allows this.
Well, I never had a passion for politics. I've got a passion for justice.
Yep.
Genuine change only occurs when legislation actually changes, and I'm passionate about changing legislation for the better. Animal welfare isn't a left or a right issue. It's a moral issue.
Yep.
And we want to take all animals out of entertainment, and it will start with greyhound racing, and it's just coincidentally that we do actually align with the same values with what Free the Hounds want to achieve.
What's going on with you, Mel? I know that the petition has come to a close. How do we do? Do we do all right?
Really good, really good. We would have loved 30,000, but hey, we were so close. That's brilliant. The biggest thing that we need now is for the standing committee to actually take a really good look at it and not rely on information that is passed to them by ministers that do not know the facts.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely should be banned. It's clear cut. It's an absolutely deplorable industry. It's abusing the dogs. There is absolutely no animal welfare, and we absolutely have to put a stop to this industry. I don't think I've ever seen a dog come from a trainer where they've been in good body condition, happy, healthy, accustomed to pet life. They come with a myriad of problems and the core root of this problem is the greyhound racing industry. So I think we absolutely need to put a stop to it.
If you were thinking, who would you want to sponsor Talking Couch Potatoes? You wouldn't think Tesla, would you, for a start? We wouldn't want them. We wouldn't want Sportsbet to sponsor us, you know? So you guess who we got? The latest podcast sponsor, Henry Houndwear. henryhoundwear.com.au. A Greyhound designer label now. And don't forget, we've got the listener feedback. We're doing regular segments now. We're tidying this Greyhound's breakfast up. So get on to podcast@freethehounds.com.au. So yeah, thank you for listening. Please listen again. Let's get together and release the hounds.
Bye, Matt.
Because our aim is to eventually, Mel, release the hounds. So if you want to be a part of that change, get involved so that we can finally release the hounds. Beautiful.
There you go.
There's some deep
Keep up the
metaphorical
fight.
knowledge in that. Keep up the fight so one day we can finally release the hounds.